Are we live? Okay, great.
Sounds
I
like what
see.
you are.
I'm seeing a little connecting message at the top of my screen. Do you see that too?
I do not.
Okay, what is going on here?
We are, this is an adventure for us to
Yes, it is. Yeah.
be using technology and in all these new wonderful ways.
Yes. The technology part I love, but it's always a new adventure on a new platform. Yeah, so I'm just wondering because if it says that we're live on your side, then I guess we'll just assume we're live.
And I'm looking at my Substack, and my Substack says that we're live.
Amazing. Okay, great.
So
Well, here we are. So I guess we can introduce ourselves. I am Megan Vaudry of Non-Monogamy Coaching Vancouver, and I am uh, casting to you live from the unceded territories of the Musqueam, Squamish, and Tsleil-Waututh Nations. And joining me is my colleague Mel. Mel Cassidy is is an author of an amazing book, and I'm so happy that we're able to work together facilitating a community discussion group. We've been doing that for the past few months, and we wanted to do a little recap and discuss some of what came up in the discussion group so that we could share it with our online audiences as well.
hmm
Yeah. Did you want to talk a little bit more about the discussion group?
Yeah. I'll also acknowledge I'm also on the Tsleil-Waututh, Squamish, and Musqueam territories. And it's so lovely to just be in conversation and actually have these debriefs about the discussion groups, because I think that for me in my early learning journey, you know, and going back 12, more 13, 14 years ago now, having those discussion spaces was so informative and I think foundational for me in being able to come into my own way of practicing non-monogamy. Because, and I say this as an author, you can pick up a book on non-monogamy, but it's not actually going to give you everything that you need. Um, and having that community of peers is really, really valuable. Um, so this format of Polyamory 101 discussions is something that started, I think, about 16 years ago in BC at least. And there was a group of wonderful people in Victoria on Vancouver Island, the Lekwungen territories, um, that started getting together and creating a format. And I mean, you can have a discussion without a format. But the format that they wanted to do was like, let's actually prepare some prompts. Let's have a guided conversation. And let's also make the topics juicy, and this format was so popular, they copied it over in Nanaimo, they copied it in Vancouver, and the person who's one of the main facilitators in the Nanaimo group for many years is an ex-partner of mine. And so I got to learn this format from him. And I will say, like, he would do all sorts of Google Docs and so many notes to prepare. And I'm like, I think I'm going to wing it. I think I can remember what my questions are. But yeah, so we, the Vancouver Poly 101 group started about 14 or 15 years ago. And like so many things, was dormant through the years of, lockdown. And so we were like, hey, can we pick up this baton and get this going? Because I think as coaches, we both recognize, like, even when people come to see us for one-on-one coaching, it is not the same experience as being in a group of your peers and having that group discovery conversation. Like, that is what I love about the one-on-one discussions, is that no one person is the expert in that room. We are all learning together.
Yes, this is a really big part of what I like, is because it's a very different format than you or I delivering content and delivering curriculum. So I love the emergent quality of getting in a room with a lot of other people. And we've had really good turnouts already, which is awesome. And just getting to have that group discussion and see what comes up and what comes out of the group. And that's why I'm really excited about this recap, is because, it's things that really yeah, that really, I think, speak to the diversity of experience in polyamory in the group, that really speaks to the kind of current in the moment issues that are coming up with all the different members. Yeah, and really speaks to the heart of what we're doing when we're rethinking relationships and relating outside of the monogamous structure. And I wanted to echo too that because so much of life these days is online and so much of what we do is on a screen, it's really exciting to be able to offer this opportunity to get together in a room for people who want to and are able to. So I'm really happy we're able to do that. So
Yeah.
yeah. So our topic for the most recent group was the different types of love, the different kinds of love, and this was your topic that you introduced. So I wondered if you wanted to, yeah, tell us a bit about what was the inspiration for it.
Yeah. I mean, it's February and February has Valentine's Day, and I hate the Hallmark holidayness of it all, but I always think it's an opportunity to reflect on, well, what is love really? And, in the English language, we have very few words that we use in everyday, you know, speech to describe love. And I muse about how colonial that is, right? This reductiveness of love being this one word that it's supposed to encompass all these different qualities. Whereas when I look into my own lineage and my ancestry, in Greek, there's like 8, 9 words for different kinds of love. If I go further back into my Romani ancestors and into the Indo-European languages and Sanskrit, it's like there are infinite numbers of words to describe the different kinds of love we can experience. And for me, I find that polyamory has been it's not certainly not the only way you can do this, but it's been a way to explore the differentiation between these kinds of love. Because I think that very often we get trapped into what we're sold as the hallmark fairy tale fantasy of romantic love.
Hmm.
And I think polyamory has helped me at least to differentiate, oh, I can be deeply in love with my friends and it doesn't have to be weird.
Hmm.
I can be deeply loving with someone who's a casual hookup and it doesn't have to create a story. I don't have to put meaning on it. Like love can be meaningless, not in that it has no purpose or we should treat it frivolously, but that love is meaningless in the way of we don't have to make it a big deal. And one of the things that came up for me in this discussion, which I'm sure we're going to talk about in a moment here, is this idea of and we treat love as being like the goal of relationships very often in the romantic framework.
Hmm.
But what if love is the beginning of relationship?
Hmm. Hmm.
Which I think
hmm
ties into these ideas of like universal love
hmm
um and how we experience empathy and compassion and kindness. And I feel like I'm starting to go down my rabbit holes now. So I'll
Yeah, no, I definitely agree with everything you are saying, and I really love how you pointed out the reductive mentality around love that can really come with this like Hallmark holiday kind of prescriptive monogamy thinking. And what I did really notice in the group is a lot of people talked about how polyamory had really changed their relationship with love. One of the things that came up, someone said that it had changed their relationship to everything, their relationship to life, their relationship to love. And then polyamory had really been this doorway for them to connect with life in a whole new way, in a much more inclusive, like in a secure attachment to life.
Mhm.
Yeah. And
And I
so
think
I
we
think
heard
it's so
that echoed
beautiful.
by a number of people
Yeah. Yeah.
for the evening that there is, yeah, what you were saying about like that secure attachment that monogamous frameworks for love say we're going to get our attachment needs met from that monogamous partner. And that is such I think, futile way to approach attachment
Mm-hmm.
because it's so precarious. And
Yeah.
and to really have that security, in yourself. You need to know that you have relationship to more than one. You need to know that you have a relationality to other humans, to other living beings who are non-human, to the land, to the trees, to the air, to the environment you're in.
Mhm.
We all have a different kind of attachment experience with the economy. Like there's
Mhm.
so many different layers to that.
Mhm.
Um, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and you go into this quite a bit in your book as well. There's a lot of layers that you explore in your book. And in my work, I find the central theme is more about connecting to the energy of universal love from a place of self, right? And I mean, it's very similar. We have different language for the same thing, I think, a lot of the time. But yeah, and so tuning into this idea of expansive love. Yeah, and I think where it gets really interesting is talking about how that breaks down into the practical, into the nitty gritty of day to day life,
Mhm.
right? And how that really
Mhm.
shows up in practical ways in our lives.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
yeah,
think that and I think this came up in the discussion briefly that, polyamory as a practice for being able to explore universal love,
mm,
uh, at a very relational level, like, not as some kind of abstract phenomenon, which I think is fine to kind of explore that idea. And I think in a lot of
mhm,
spirituality practices,
yeah,
there's that aspect of an abstract universal love, but to actually be able to explore what that's like on a practical, one-on-one relational level, um,
yeah,
and also kind of like having one-on-one relationships without the possessiveness.
mhm,
Um,
yeah. Yeah, yeah, and this all came up under the one of the questions was, how does polyamory change your understanding of love? So this all fits into the category of this
mhm.
expansive idea of love. Yeah, that love can be less prescribed, that it can be more inclusive, that it can be more organic, and also that it can change our relationship with relationships transforming or changing or ending. That was also a theme that arose was how polyamory can change our idea of what breakups are essentially and what relationships ending could look like. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah, and that idea that we just transition to a different expression of love. And
Yeah.
I always remind people, I'm like, sometimes that expression of love is a lot of space.
Yeah, yeah. The space from which I can love both myself and you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
and I think that within that there's, we have to let go of the inner gatekeeping that we do around romantic love,
Mhm.
right?
Yeah.
We kind of have a tendency to put it up on a pedestal, um I don't mean that we're being encouraged to do that this month with Valentine's Day and all the marketing
Absolutely.
around that.
Mhm.
But to take it off the pedestal and actually go, well, what does this actually mean? What
Mhm.
if I'm not gatekeeping it in myself? What if I'm not gatekeeping it for others? What
Mhm.
if we just be more loving?
Mhm. 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 Yeah, and I love the way that you're framing this because it makes me think about just being more compassionate and more loving in the world at large. Yeah.
Mhm. Mhm. So
Yeah,
important.
rather than having that hierarchy of like these are the people I love and treat in a loving way, and these are not the people I love and I don't treat them in a loving way.
Mhm.
How can we expand that and apply
Mhm.
that knowledge
Mhm.
in a different way?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if we should move on to one of the other questions that we discussed and talk about some of the themes. Yeah, what
Yeah.
about I yeah, new dimensions of love. Oh, an interesting one was one of the questions was how important is love compatibility in your relationships?
This was a great question to jump
Yeah.
into. I love it when we have question prompts that it's like, you can argue all different points of view. I'm like, this is a great essay topic. Um, and, uh, and I think it's interesting to look at how like for some people it's not so much of a change in their perspective, but an affirmation.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, it's a really big shift
Mm-hmm.
in how they relate to love. And
Yeah.
and and that it's okay to have different styles.
Yes.
And we got
Yes.
into a whole interesting conversation about like, and I might have provided this prompt, I don't remember now, but about like, is it still like how pedantic are we going to be about the term polyamory? Because polyamory literally means many loves. And if you are treating all relationships as being based in love, does that
Mm-hmm.
then mean that swinging becomes a form of polyamory, or is it separate, or is it more about the intentionality that people are bringing into it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so I think the question then becomes, is polyamory a term for a structural term for a type of non-monogamy, or is it is it a philosophy? You
Yeah.
know, a theme that came up was like I am a polyamorous person, regardless of if I'm in a relationship currently.
Hmm.
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 And
And it's
so,
that whole like orientation versus practice question.
yeah, and I think it depends on. I think what I remember, like what came up for me during discussing that question was how we use the terminology can really depend on the setting. You know, if we want to describe the types of relationships we're in, then
Hmm.
open relationship is maybe a better catch-all term for a type of non-monogamy that may or may not fit into one of the categories.
Hmm.
But then that might be open relationships could be a better word than polyamory as this catch-all term.
Hmm.
But polyamory is also this way of describing a person or a philosophy or.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I think that within that, again, within polyamory, there are so many different expressions of love that we can
Mhm.
experience. And
Yeah.
I do remember there was a lovely kind of sidebar conversation that we started talking about, like the in the metamor relationships, and that's been a previous topic we looked at.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
the I always think about how some of my dearest friends today are people who started out as metamors,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
we were just like, oh, we have so much in common. Like I
Yeah.
joke that like polyamorous dating is not as simple as finding someone else who's polyamorous and being like, "Oh, look at this. We have this in common. Let's date." But I find that with my metamor friendships, there's been not always. I've also had metamors where it's like, "Oh, there's no chance of friendship." And that's fine. But when there's that potential for oh, we have this thing in common, that we have like a similar type of person that we're attracted to,
Mhm.
there's also a curiosity, and those have become some of my most loving friendships.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
that's the exploration of that platonic love, the familial love, and
Mhm.
being able to grow that. Like, it's happened as a consequence of my polyamory, even though it's not the center point of my polyamory, but it kind of now
Mhm.
is. And maybe that's also my relationship anarchy bleeding in, that
Mhm.
we we have that ability to explore the all the dimensions of love.
Yeah, and this open thinking about the dimensions of love being a doorway to this kind of queer platonic chosen family
Mhm.
creation that we can do in life, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm just wondering. Yeah, there was just so much goodness in that group. Yeah. Yeah, I really enjoyed just watching, the energy kind of goes up and down. There's a lot of people, sometimes there's like a lot of people wanting to say something and wanting to contribute, but then there's also these moments of just like really beautiful, full silence.
Mhm.
Yeah.
That's what I love about the group wisdom. I always make notes. I've got a little journal that I started
Mm,
just for the Poly
mhm,
101s. And I find that people come up with questions that I would never have thought of. There was one that I wrote down of, um, do you love your partners the same way? And I love, playing on that of like, is it okay to love our partners the same way? I mean, I know I don't. I have different experiences of love with different partners, and that can change over time. But some people find that there's one way that they show up in loving. And if
Mhm,
it's not that, they're not going to invest the time and energy into the
mhm,
connection way.
mhm,
Um,
mhm,
yeah.
mhm. Absolutely. Yeah, there's a lot of different ways. A lot of different
Mhm.
ways to be human. Mhm.
We get to
Yeah,
explore all of that through relationship.
we do. Yes, and it is so beautiful. Yeah. So, yeah, do you have any should we wrap it up here? Do you have anything else that you wanna add?
I'm just kind of looking through my notes, and I some there was something that came up that I think is just nice to kind of tag on, and maybe this is like the kind of closing part of this is the discussion definitely got into how love impacts our experience of self.
Mhm,
And that we take on a lot of identity based on how we love and who we love.
mhm,
And of course,
mhm.
like we see this in monogamy around like, oh, I'm a successful grown up. I have this monogamous partnership now, and then the relationship escalator, even if you're not
Yeah, the
monogamous.
identity piece, yeah. Mhm,
And so yeah, that prompt has left me thinking about the ways that we sometimes, I think, build up an identity for ourselves around polyamory
mhm,
and forget the other things
mhm,
that make up who we are.
mhm,
It's got me thinking about like how we reintegrate that
mhm,
um, with love at the center point.
mhm. Yeah, and I think because how we relate is such a big part of who we are, our relationships and our outlook on love. And so I think inevitably we are, redefining a part of our identity when we choose polyamory. But then how do we also keep the rest of our identity intact? Like, how can we like let it have waves of positivity through our life in the ways that we can open to love more and be more loving in our way of being? But then also recognize that it's not everything. We're all nuanced humans, and what makes us unique and what makes up who we are is what we bring to relationships ultimately. And so how can we be doing both, right?
Yeah,
Coming from both sides.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Great.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you want to share about the topic that you've picked for next month?
Yes. I'm going to introduce the topic of hierarchy next month, and so we're going to be talking about both partnered polyamory as well as solo polyamory, how hierarchy shows up in different ways in different relationships, how hierarchy can be functional, how it can be dysfunctional, how it can be helpful, how it can cause harm, and explore all of the different aspects that hierarchy has, as well as the ways that it affects our relationships and us as people. So I'm really excited for that one. I think it's a really interesting topic with endless ways to discuss it, endless ways to look at it. And so I think it's going to be a really lively and nuanced discussion.
I agree. I think it's a juicy topic, and I'm excited to co-facilitate on this topic with you because I know we have very different experiences of how we navigate hierarchy in our relationships.
Yes.
And so I think we're going to be bringing in the a very well-rounded perspective. Let's put it that way. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, I agree. I think it's nice to, I feel like we represent kind of both sides. If we polarize it, we'll represent both sides.
Yeah.
But I'm looking forward to not polarizing it and to exploring the nuance and intersection and yeah, just the is of it all.
And folks in Vancouver can find the information on Plura.
Yes, on Plura, as well as on the Book of Faces. And yeah, you can always drop me a message if you're looking for info on my work, or you can drop Mel a message for info, and you can find us both on our websites. And yeah, we hope to see you at a community discussion if you're in the Vancouver area and feel so inclined.
Yeah. Thanks so much
Yeah.
for suggesting the live to hop on. I think we should do this for other discussions because I think it's a nice way to keep the conversation going.
Yeah, agreed. And I do think it's nice it's nice for us to get to chat about it, just the two of us, because we don't do that when we're at the group. We're discussing as a much larger group. So yeah,
Mhm.
it's really lovely. Okay. Well, yeah, thank you so much for this. This was really, really great. I really enjoyed our
You.
conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bye.